The year was 2347, and humanity had transformed itself into something no one could have predicted centuries earlier. Earth, once considered a cradle of life, had long been nicknamed Deathworld due to its harsh conditions, unstable weather, patterns, deadly predators, and an environment that seemed almost designed to test the limits of survival. But instead of breaking humanity, these challenges forged them into a species unlike any other in the galaxy. They were resilient, adaptable, and fiercely determined to protect what mattered most. Over time, humans spread across the stars, building colonies on distant planets and establishing alliances with countless alien civilizations. By this point, humanity wasn't just another race among many, it was a galactic superpower. Their fleets roamed the cosmos, their engineers built wonders beyond imagination, and their soldiers were renowned for their skill and bravery. But despite their dominance, humanity never forgot where they came from, or how hard they had fought to survive. It was this shared history that made them unique, a people who understood pain, loss, and triumph better than anyone else. One day, everything changed. A strange signal reached Earth's United Galactic Fleet headquarters. It wasn't like anything Commander Jae-hyun Kim had ever seen before. The transmission was weak, fragmented, and filled with static, but there was no mistaking its urgency. Somewhere far away, someone, or something, was calling for help. Jae-hyun stood in the command center, staring at the holographic display hovering above the table. Around him, officers scrambled to decode the message. Lieutenant Soo-min Park, his trusted strategist, leaned over her console, brow furrowed in concentration. Her fingers danced across the controls as she tried to piece together fragments of the transmission. Finally, after hours of work, she turned to Jae-hyun. "Sir," she said, her voice steady but tinged with concern, "we've managed to clean up parts of the signal. It's coming from a distant galaxy, an alliance of alien species known as the Vaylith Alliance. They're under attack by some kind of hostile force." Jae-hyun frowned. "Hostile force? Do we know who?" Soo-min hesitated. "Not yet, but based on the data, it's bad. Really bad. Whoever is attacking them has superior numbers and technology. The Vaylith are barely holding on." Captain Min-ju Lee, leader of the Dreadnought Squadron, stepped forward. She crossed her arms and gave Jae-hyun a skeptical look. "With respect, sir, why should we care about aliens in another galaxy? We have our own problems to deal with here." Her words hung heavy in the air, but Jae-hyun didn't respond immediately. He knew she had a point. Humanity had resources, yes, but those resources weren't infinite. Sending ships and troops to another galaxy would be risky, not to mention expensive. Still, something about the distress call tugged at him. Maybe it was the desperation in the fragmented message, or maybe it was the memory of how close humanity itself had come to extinction so many times in the past. Whatever it was, he couldn't ignore it. "We care," Jae-hyun said finally, his tone firm, "because we are human. We survived because others helped us when we needed it most. Now it's our turn to do the same." Min-ju opened her mouth to argue, but Chief Engineer Tae-woo Choi interrupted her. Tae-woo was a quiet man, not prone to speaking unless he had something important to say. When he spoke now, his voice carried weight. "Sir, if I may, this could also be an opportunity. If we can establish good relations with the Vaylith, it might open doors for future partnerships. And besides, think about what we could learn from studying their technology and their enemies." Jae-hyun nodded slowly. Tae-woo had a point. This mission wasn't just about charity. It was about strategic advantage. By helping the Vaylith, humanity could gain valuable allies and knowledge that might benefit them in the long run. "All right," Jae-hyun said, making his decision. "We'll send a fleet. Not the entire armada, but enough to make a difference. Lieutenant Park, start assembling a team. Captain Lee, prepare your dreadnoughts. Tae-woo, I want you to focus on adapting any alien tech we find along the way. This isn't going to be easy, but if we pull it off, it could change everything." Over the next few days, preparations moved quickly. The chosen crew included some of humanity's best and brightest. Soo-min worked tirelessly to plan every detail of the operation, poring over star charts and tactical simulations late into the night. Min-ju drilled her squadron relentlessly, ensuring they were ready for whatever awaited them. And Tae-woo spent hours tinkering with experimental equipment, determined to give the fleet every possible edge. As the launch date approached, tensions ran high. Everyone knew the risks involved. Traveling to another galaxy meant leaving behind familiar territory and potentially facing threats beyond their understanding. But despite the danger, morale remained strong. These were humans, after all. They thrived on challenges. On the morning of departure, the fleet gathered near Earth's moon. Hundreds of ships stretched across the void, their sleek hulls gleaming in the sunlight. At the center of the formation stood the flagship Invincible Resolve, commanded by Jae-hyun himself. As the countdown began, Jae-hyun addressed his crew via intercom. "Today," he said, his voice echoing through the corridors of every ship, "we embark on a journey unlike any other. We go not just as warriors, but as representatives of humanity. We carry with us the hopes of billions, not only our own, but those of the Valith as well. Remember who we are. Remember what we stand for. Together, we will face whatever lies ahead." With that, the fleet activated its jump drives and disappeared into the depths of space. Ahead of them lay the unknown, a galaxy torn apart by war, and a desperate plea for help from beings they had never met. For better or worse, humanity's fate was now tied to theirs. As the ships hurtled through the wormhole, the crew braced themselves for what was to come. None of them could have guessed just how much this mission would test their strength, their courage, and their very humanity. But one thing was certain: the Deathworlders were coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. The year was 2347, and humanity had transformed itself into something no one could have predicted centuries earlier. Earth, once considered a cradle of life, had long been nicknamed Deathworld due to its harsh conditions. Unstable weather, patterns, deadly predators, and an environment that seemed almost designed to test the limits of survival. But instead of breaking humanity, these challenges forged them into a species unlike any other in the galaxy. They were resilient, adaptable, and fiercely determined to protect what mattered most. Over time, humans spread across the stars, building colonies on distant planets and establishing alliances with countless alien civilizations. By this point, humanity wasn't just another race among many. It was a galactic superpower. Their fleets roamed the cosmos, their engineers built wonders beyond imagination, and their soldiers were renowned for their skill and bravery. But despite their dominance, humanity never forgot where they came from or how hard they had fought to survive. It was this shared history that made them unique, a people who understood pain, loss, and triumph better than anyone else. One day, everything changed. A strange signal reached Earth's United Galactic Fleet headquarters. It wasn't like anything Commander Jae-hyun Kim had ever seen before. The transmission was weak, fragmented, and filled with static, but there was no mistaking its urgency. Somewhere far away, someone, or something, was calling for help. Jae-hyun stood in the command center, staring at the holographic display hovering above the table. Around him, officers scrambled to decode the message. Lieutenant Soo-min Park, his trusted strategist, leaned over her console, brow furrowed in concentration. Her fingers danced across the controls as she tried to piece together fragments of the transmission. Finally, after hours of work, she turned to Jae-hyun. "Sir," she said, her voice steady but tinged with concern, "we've managed to clean up parts of the signal. It's coming from a distant galaxy, an alliance of alien species known as the Valith Alliance. They're under attack by some kind of hostile force." Jae-hyun frowned. "Hostile force? Do we know who?" Soo-min hesitated. "Not yet. But based on the data, it's bad. Really bad. Whoever is attacking them has superior numbers and technology. The Valith are barely holding on." Captain Min-ju Lee, leader of the Dreadnought Squadron, stepped forward. She crossed her arms and gave Jae-hyun a skeptical look. "With respect, sir, why should we care about aliens in another galaxy? We have our own problems to deal with here." Her words hung heavy in the air, but Jae-hyun didn't respond immediately. He knew she had a point. Humanity had resources, yes, but those resources weren't infinite. Sending ships and troops to another galaxy would be risky, not to mention expensive. Still, something about the distress call tugged at him. Maybe it was the desperation in the fragmented message, or maybe it was the memory of how close humanity itself had come to extinction so many times in the past. Whatever it was, he couldn't ignore it. "We care," Jae-hyun said finally, his tone firm, "because we are human. We survived because others helped us when we needed it most. Now it's our turn to do the same." Min-ju opened her mouth to argue, but Chief Engineer Tae-woo Choi interrupted her. Tae-woo was a quiet man, not prone to speaking unless he had something important to say. When he spoke now, his voice carried weight. "Sir, if I may, this could also be an opportunity. If we can establish good relations with the Valith, it might open doors for future partnerships. And besides, think about what we could learn from studying their technology and their enemies." Jae-hyun nodded slowly. Tae-woo had a point. This mission wasn't just about charity, it was about strategic advantage. By helping the Valith, humanity could gain valuable allies and knowledge that might benefit them in the long run. "All right," Jae-hyun said, making his decision. "We'll send a fleet. Not the entire armada, but enough to make a difference. Lieutenant Park, start assembling a team. Captain Lee, prepare your dreadnoughts. Tae-woo, I want you to focus on adapting any alien tech we find along the way. This isn't going to be easy, but if we pull it off, it could change everything." Over the next few days, preparations moved quickly. The chosen crew included some of humanity's best and brightest. Sumin worked tirelessly to plan every detail of the operation, poring over star charts and tactical simulations late into the night. Min-ju drilled her squadron relentlessly, ensuring they were ready for whatever awaited them. And Tae-woo spent hours tinkering with experimental equipment, determined to give the fleet every possible edge. As the launch date approached, tensions ran high. Everyone knew the risks involved. Traveling to another galaxy meant leaving behind familiar territory and potentially facing threats beyond their understanding. But despite the danger, morale remained strong. These were humans, after all. They thrived on challenges. On the morning of departure, the fleet gathered near Earth's moon. Hundreds of ships stretched across the void, their sleek hulls gleaming in the sunlight. At the center of the formation stood the flagship Invincible Resolve, commanded by Jae-hyun himself. As the countdown began, Jae-hyun addressed his crew via intercom. "Today," he said, his voice echoing through the corridors of every ship, "we embark on a journey unlike any other. We go not just as warriors, but as representatives of humanity. We carry with us the hopes of billions, not only our own, but those of the Valith as well. Remember who we are. Remember what we stand for. Together we will face whatever lies ahead." With that, the fleet activated its jump drives. And the wormhole shimmered like liquid glass as the human fleet emerged on the other side. The ships shuddered slightly from the transition, their hulls groaning under the strain of intergalactic travel. For a moment, there was silence across the fleet, a collective breath held as sensors recalibrated and systems rebooted. Then, one by one, status reports flooded into the command center aboard the Invincible Resolve. Commander Jae-hyun Kim stood at the helm, his sharp eyes scanning the holographic displays that floated around him. The view outside was breathtaking, but unsettling. Stars burned brighter here than in the Milky Way, their light piercing through swirling clouds of cosmic dust. Strange energy fields rippled in the distance, distorting space itself. It was beautiful, but dangerous. Lieutenant Sumin Park leaned over her console, analyzing the readings. "Sir," she said, her voice calm but tinged with concern, "we're not alone out here." Jae-hyun turned to her. "What do you mean?" Sumin pointed to a cluster of blinking red dots on the tactical map. "Those are debris fields, remnants of destroyed ships. Judging by the patterns, these weren't random accidents. Someone or something has been systematically wiping out anything that comes through this region." Captain Min-ju Lee, standing nearby, crossed her arms. "Great. Just what we needed. Hostile territory before we even reached the Valith." Before Jae-hyun could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A sudden gravity storm swept through the area, pulling at the fleet. With invisible hands, Ships buckled under the pressure, engines straining to maintain formation. Tae-Woo Choi, the chief engineer, rushed to stabilize the flagship systems, his fingers flying over the controls. "This isn't natural!" he shouted over the noise. "Something's generating these anomalies. If we don't adjust our course soon, we'll be torn apart." "Adjust course," Jae-hyun barked. "All ships, follow my lead." The fleet maneuvered carefully, weaving through the chaotic currents of the storm. It was slow going, and several smaller vessels suffered damage, but they managed to escape without losing any ships. As the storm faded behind them, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. But their respite was short-lived. Ahead, floating silently in the void, were the ruins of an alien civilization. Jagged spires jutted out from shattered planets, their surfaces scorched black by weapons fire. Entire cities had been reduced to rubble, their once proud structures now mere shadows of their former selves. The sight sent chills down everyone's spines. "What happened here?" Min-ju murmured, her usual skepticism replaced by awe and fear. Su-min studied the wreckage closely. "It looks like the work of the Zorthians, the same force attacking the Valith. They didn't just conquer, they obliterated everything in their path." Jae-hyun clenched his fists. "If this is what they're capable of, we need to prepare for the worst." As they continued onward, the fleet encountered more signs of destruction. Dead moons drifted aimlessly through space, their cores hollowed out by mining operations. Gone wrong. Derelict ships floated lifelessly, their crews long since perished. And then there were the creatures. Strange, shadowy beings that seemed to materialize out of nowhere, drawn to the fleet like moths to a flame. "These things, they're not alive," Tae-Woo muttered as he examined sensor data. "They're remnants, pieces of assimilated species left behind by the Zorthians, like echoes of what used to be." "They're still dangerous," Su-min added. D disappeared into the depths of space. Ahead of them lay the unknown, a galaxy torn apart by war, and a desperate plea for help from beings they had never met. For better or worse, humanity's fate was now tied to theirs. As the ships hurtled through the wormhole, the crew braced themselves for what was to come. None of them could have guessed just how much this mission would test their strength, their courage, and their very humanity. The human fleet finally reached the Valith homeworld after days of harrowing travel through hostile space. What they found was a scene of devastation. The once thriving planet, lush with forests and shimmering oceans, now lay in ruins. Its surface was scarred by endless bombardment. Craters stretched as far as the eye could see, and cities were reduced to smoldering rubble. Thick ash clouds choked the atmosphere, blocking out most sunlight. It was a grim reminder of the Zorthians' relentless brutality. Despite the destruction, signs of life remained. Deep beneath the surface, hidden within fortified bunkers, the Valith clung to existence. They had survived this long thanks to their advanced technology and sheer determination, but it was clear that their time was running out. Without help, they would not last much longer. Commander Jae-hyun Kim ordered the fleet to enter orbit around the planet. As the ships positioned themselves, Lieutenant Su-min Park worked tirelessly to establish communication with the Valith. After several tense minutes, a faint signal crackled through the static. On the main view screen aboard the Invincible Resolve, an alien figure appeared, a tall, slender being with translucent skin and glowing blue veins. Its voice was soft, but carried an air of authority. "Humans," it said, bowing slightly. "We are honored by your arrival. I am Elder Kalis, leader of the Valith Alliance. Your response to our plea gives us hope when all seemed lost." Jae-hyun stepped forward, addressing the Elder with respect. "Elder Kalis, we came as quickly as we could. Tell us what you're facing so we can help." Kalis hesitated before, speaking again, his expression heavy with sorrow. "The Zorthian horde is unlike anything you have encountered. They are biomechanical beings, capable of assimilating other species into their hive mind collective. Their goal is to conquer and consume, leaving nothing behind. For years, they have hunted us across the stars, seeking to claim our ability to manipulate quantum energy, a power that would make them nearly unstoppable." Su-min leaned closer to her console, absorbing every detail. "Quantum manipulation? That explains why they're so persistent. But how does it work?" Kalis nodded. Our kind has evolved to harness quantum fields naturally. With this ability, we can alter reality on a fundamental level, bending matter, reshaping time, and even creating barriers impervious to conventional weapons. However, such power comes at a cost. Our bodies are fragile, and we lack the means to defend ourselves against overwhelming force. Captain Minju Lee crossed her arms, skepticism evident on her face. So you want us to fight your war for you? To risk our lives protecting something we don't fully understand? Kalis met her gaze calmly. We do not ask this lightly. Many of us have already perished trying to resist the Zorthians. But if we fall, so too will countless others across the galaxy. You are humanity, the legendary Deathworlders. If anyone can stand against them, it is you. The room fell silent as the weight of Kalis's words sank in. Jae-hyun glanced at his crew, searching for answers in their expressions. Finally, he turned back to the screen. Tell us everything you know about the Zorthians. Every detail matters. Over the next hour, Kalis provided the humans with crucial information. The Zorthians operated under a centralized hive mind located aboard a colossal mothership. This ship served as both their command center and their primary weapon, capable of unleashing devastating attacks on entire planets. Destroying the mothership would cripple their forces, but reaching it would be no easy task. The Zorthians surrounded themselves with swarms of smaller drones and towering biomechanical constructs designed to overwhelm any opposition. As the briefing concluded, Jae-hyun called his senior officers together for an emergency meeting. Around the table, faces were grim. Everyone understood the stakes and the risks involved. We need a plan, Jae-hyun began, pacing slowly. Something bold enough to give the Vaylith a fighting chance, but practical enough to keep our own people alive. Su-min spoke first. Based on what Kalis told us, their remaining quantum reactors might be our best bet. If we can use them to generate EMP-like pulses, we could disable the Zorthian machines temporarily. That would buy us some breathing room. Minju frowned. It's risky. Those reactors are deep underground, surrounded by enemy forces. Getting to them won't be easy. Tae-woo Choi chimed in, his tone thoughtful. I've studied the schematics Kalis sent us. If we modify our shielding systems, we might be able to interface with the reactors without triggering alarms. But we'll need someone on the ground to handle the adjustments manually. That's where I come in, Su-min said firmly. I'll lead the ground team. We'll secure the reactors and set up the pulse generators. Jae-hyun hesitated. Sending Su-min into such danger didn't sit well with him, but he knew she was the most qualified person for the job. All right, he said finally, but you won't go alone. Tae-woo, you'll join her. Your expertise will be critical. Tae-woo nodded, though his usual calm demeanor faltered slightly. He wasn't a soldier, and the idea of stepping onto a battlefield terrified him. Still, he understood the importance of the mission. If anyone could adapt to the chaos, it was him. With the plan set, preparations began immediately. Dropships were prepped, weapons were checked, and armor was fitted. The mood among the crew was tense but resolute. These were humans, after all, survivors who thrived under pressure. Each person knew the risks, yet none hesitated to step forward. Before departure, Jae-hyun addressed the ground team personally. Standing in the hangar bay, surrounded by rows of soldiers and engineers, he spoke with quiet conviction. This mission won't be easy. The Zorthians are ruthless, and they'll stop at nothing to protect their prize. But remember this. We are humanity. We are the descendants of survivors. No matter how dark things get, we find a way to endure. Today, we fight not just for the Vaylith, but for everyone who believes in freedom. Make me proud. As the dropships launched, carrying Su-min, Tae-woo, and dozens of others toward the surface, the rest of the fleet prepared for its role in the operation. Minju coordinated orbital strikes, targeting key Zorthian positions to weaken their defenses. From high above, the dreadnoughts unleashed barrages of plasma fire, lighting up the ash-filled skies below. Explosions rocked the planet's surface, forcing the Zorthians to divert resources away from the reactor sites. On the ground, the battle raged fiercely. The moment the dropships touched down, waves of insectoid drones descended upon the landing zone. Soldiers returned fire, their weapons blazing as they fought to hold their position. Su-min led the charge, her tactical mind working overtime to outmaneuver the enemy. She directed squads to flank the drones while snipers picked off commanders from a distance. Despite being outnumbered, her team held firm. Meanwhile, Tae-woo worked frantically to interface with the quantum reactors. His hands trembled as he connected cables and adjusted settings, knowing that one wrong move could trigger catastrophic consequences. Nearby, explosions shook the ground, sending debris flying in all directions. A shard of metal grazed his arm, drawing blood, but he barely noticed. His focus was absolute. After what felt like hours, Tae-woo finally gave the signal. "Pulse generator online, activating in 10 seconds, Suman shouted orders to her team. "Fall back to the extraction. Point, now!" The EMP-like pulse surged outward, engulfing the area in a blinding flash of light. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Then, cheers erupted as the Zorthian machines collapsed, their systems fried by the electromagnetic wave. The ground team had succeeded, but victory came at a cost. Several soldiers had fallen during the fight, their sacrifices ensuring the mission's success. Back in orbit, Jae-hyun watched the operation unfold with bated breath. When the pulse hit, he exhaled sharply, relief washing over him. But there was no time to celebrate. The Zorthians were already regrouping, adapting to the loss of their machines. Reinforcements poured into the area, determined to reclaim the reactors. "Get them out of there," Jae-hyun ordered. "All ships, provide cover fire." Dropships swooped in, dodging incoming fire as they retrieved the ground team. Inside one of the ships, Su-min slumped against the wall, exhausted but triumphant. Beside her, Tae-woo clutched, his wounded arm, his face pale but resolute. They had done their part, but the war was far from over. As the fleet regrouped, Jae-hyun reflected on the day's events. The humans had struck a blow against the Zorthians, proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could prevail. But the real challenge still lay ahead. The hive mind mothership loomed large in their thoughts, its presence casting a shadow over everything they had achieved. For now, though, the crew allowed themselves a moment of quiet pride. They had faced death and emerged victorious, not because they were invincible, but because they refused to give up. And in that refusal lay the true strength of humanity. The ground team returned to the fleet battered but alive. Dropships docked with the invincible resolve, their hulls scorched and dented from enemy fire. Soldiers disembarked, some limping, others supporting wounded comrades. The air was thick, with exhaustion, but also a quiet pride. They had accomplished the impossible, disabling the Zorthian machines guarding the quantum reactors. But everyone knew it was only the beginning. Lieutenant Su-min Park stepped off her dropship last. Her armor streaked with dirt and ash. Her face was pale, her movements stiff, but her eyes burned with determination. She headed straight for the command center, where Commander Jae-hyun Kim waited alongside Captain Min-ju Lee and Chief Engineer Tae-woo Choi. The room buzzed with activity as officers analyzed data from the mission and updated tactical maps. "How bad is it?" Jae-hyun asked as soon as Su-min entered. She took a deep breath before answering. "We got the pulse generator online, but the Zorthians adapted faster than we expected. Their reinforcements are already moving in on the reactor sites. We bought some time, but not enough." Tae-woo nodded grimly. "Their systems are modular. Even after the EMP hit, they're rebuilding themselves using spare parts and assimilated tech. It's like fighting a hydra. Cut off one head and two more grow back." Minju crossed her arms, frustration evident in her tone. "This isn't sustainable. Every victory costs us resources and lives. At this rate, we'll run out of both before we even reach their mothership." Jae-hyun leaned over the holographic display, studying the battlefield layout. "Then we need to change our approach. If brute force won't work, we'll have to rely on speed and precision. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and get out before they can counterattack." Su-min stepped closer to the map, pointing at key locations. "There are weak points in their network, smaller hubs that control larger sections of their forces. If we take those out, we can disrupt their coordination long enough to make a move on the mothership." "That's risky," Min-ju interjected. "If we spread ourselves too thin, they'll pick us off piece by piece." "It's a calculated risk," Su-min countered, "and we don't have many options left." Jae-hyun weighed their arguments, his mind racing. Finally, he made his decision. We'll do it. Su-min, plan the strikes. Min-ju, prepare your dreadnoughts to provide orbital support. Tae-woo, keep working on ways to exploit their tech. We're running out of time, so let's make every second count. Over the next few hours, the fleet launched a series of lightning-fast raids on the Zorthian hubs. Each operation was meticulously planned, with teams striking quickly and retreating before the enemy could respond. The strategy worked, for a while. The Zorthians' coordination faltered, giving the humans and Valith precious breathing room, but the cost was high. During one raid, a squad led by Sergeant Ji-eun-yoon, a veteran soldier known for her unshakable resolve, faced overwhelming odds. Their target was a heavily fortified hub located inside a ruined city. The streets were littered with debris, making navigation difficult, and swarms of biomechanical drones patrolled the area. Despite these challenges, Ji-eun pushed forward, her voice steady over the comms as she directed her team. "Stick to the plan," she said. "We go in, plant the charges, and get out. No heroics." But things went wrong almost immediately. As the squad planted explosives near the hub's core, alarms blared, alerting nearby Zorthian forces. Within minutes, the team was surrounded. Ji-eun ordered her soldiers to fall back, but one of them, a young recruit named Hyun-soo, panicked and froze under enemy fire. "Hyun-soo!" Ji-eun shouted. "Move!" She sprinted toward him, firing her weapon to keep the drones at bay. With a final burst of effort, she grabbed Hyun-soo and dragged him behind cover, just as an explosion rocked the area. When the dust settled, Ji-eun turned to her team. "Listen up. We're not dying here today. Fall back to Extraction Point Delta. I'll cover you." Her words inspired courage in her squad, and they managed to escape. Barely. But Ji-eun stayed behind, holding off wave after wave of enemies until reinforcements arrived. By the time she was pulled to safety, she was bleeding from multiple wounds and barely conscious. Her bravery saved her team, but it came at a steep price. Back aboard the flagship, news of the casualties weighed heavily on the crew. Jae-hyun visited the medical bay, where doctors worked tirelessly to treat the injured. He stopped beside Ji-eun's bed, watching as medics tended to her wounds. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow, but she opened her eyes when she sensed someone nearby. "Sir," she whispered hoarsely. "Mission success?" Jae-hyun forced a smile. "Yes, Sergeant. Thanks to you." She closed her eyes, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "Good." As Jae-hyun left the medical bay, he couldn't shake the feeling of guilt gnawing at him. Every life lost weighed on his shoulders. He reminded himself that sacrifices were inevitable in war, but that didn't make it any easier. Meanwhile, Tae-woo. Choi continued his work in the engineering bay, analyzing captured Zorthian technology. His hands moved deftly over circuits and wires, piecing together makeshift tools and weapons. Despite his fear of combat, he refused to let his team down. One breakthrough came when he discovered a flaw in the Zorthians' communication systems. By modifying human jamming devices, he created a prototype that could temporarily disrupt their hive mind connection. "This might give us an edge," Tae-woo explained to Jae-hyun during a briefing. "If we can sever their link to the mothership, even for a short time, it could throw their entire operation into chaos." Jae-hyun nodded approvingly. "Good work, Tae-woo. Get this deployed as soon as possible." With the new jamming device ready, the fleet prepared for its next major assault. This time, the objective was clear: infiltrate the central hive mind chamber aboard the Zorthian mothership and destroy the core. It was a suicide mission, but there was no other way to end the invasion. Su-min volunteered to lead the infiltration. Team, knowing full well the risks involved. "I've been on the ground since day one," she told Jae-hyun. "I know how they operate. Let me finish what we started." Jae-hyun hesitated, torn between his duty as commander and his concern for his people. "You've done more than enough, Su-min. Are you sure about this?" The infiltration mission began under the cover of darkness, or what passed for darkness in the chaotic skies above the Valith homeworld. Thick clouds of ash and smoke blocked out most sunlight, casting an eerie gloom over the battlefield. The Cab, human fleet launched a coordinated assault to draw the Zorthians' attention away from their true objective, the colossal mothership looming in orbit like a metal leviathan. Lieutenant Su-min Park led the ground team tasked with infiltrating the mothership. Clad in reinforced armor and armed with experimental weapons designed by Tae-woo Choi, the squad moved with precision through the ruins of a shattered city. Their destination was a hidden launch bay, where a stolen Zorthian transport awaited them. If everything went according to plan, they would use the captured vessel to slip past enemy defenses and board the mothership undetected. Captain Minju Lee oversaw the diversionary attack, commanding her dreadnought squadron to unleash a relentless barrage on the Zorthian fleet. Plasma cannons roared as ships exchanged fire, lighting up the sky with bursts of energy. Explosions rippled across space, scattering debris in every direction. For a moment, it seemed as though the humans might gain the upper hand, but the Zorthians quickly regrouped, countering with waves of biomechanical constructs that overwhelmed several smaller vessels. "They're adapting again," Minju muttered, frustration evident in her voice. "We can't keep this up forever." Despite the mounting pressure, she held her ground, knowing that every second bought the infiltration team more time. Her dreadnoughts absorbed heavy damage, their shields flickering dangerously low, but she refused to retreat. "Hold the line," she barked into the comms. "We're not done yet." Meanwhile, aboard the Invincible Resolve, Commander Jae-hyun Kim monitored the operation closely. His face was grim as he watched the battle unfold, his heart torn between pride in his crew's resilience and dread at the mounting losses. He knew they were running out of options and time. On the surface, Sumin's team reached the launch bay without incident. The stolen transport sat waiting, its sleek design unmistakably alien. Tae-woo approached the ship cautiously, his scanner humming softly as he analyzed its systems. "This thing is heavily encrypted," he said, frowning. "But I think I can bypass the security protocols. Give me 5 minutes." Sumin nodded, keeping watch while Tae-woo worked. Around them, the sounds of distant explosions echoed through the ruins, a constant reminder of the chaos raging overhead. Soldiers stood guard, their weapons trained on potential threats, but so far the area remained clear. "Done," Tae-woo announced after what felt like an eternity. "Let's move before they notice we're here." The team boarded the transport, strapping themselves into unfamiliar seats as Tae-woo took the controls. The engines hummed to life, and the ship lifted off smoothly, blending seamlessly into the swarm of Zorthian vessels heading toward the mothership. Thanks to Tae-woo's modifications, their presence went unnoticed, for now. As they approached the massive structure, Sumin studied its exterior through the viewport. Towering spires jutted out from the hull, bristling with weapons turrets and sensor arrays. Smaller drones patrolled the perimeter, scanning for intruders. It was a fortress in every sense of the word, designed to repel any attack. "We'll need to dock in one of the lower bays," Tae-woo said, pointing to a section of the ship marked on his console. "Less guarded, but still risky." "Understood," Sumin replied. "Everyone ready?" Her team nodded, gripping their weapons tightly. They had trained for moments like this, but nothing could fully prepare them for what lay ahead. As the transport slipped into the docking bay, they steeled themselves for the fight of their lives. Inside the mothership, the environment was eerily silent. The corridors stretched endlessly in both directions, lined with pulsating veins of organic material that glowed faintly in the dim light. Strange sounds echoed through the halls, soft clicks, mechanical whirring, and the occasional hiss of steam escaping from vents. It was unlike anything the humans had ever encountered, a grotesque fusion of biology and technology. Sumin led the way, her movements cautious but deliberate. Behind her, Tae-woo carried a portable jamming device, its soft hum creating a bubble of interference around the group. For now, the Zorthian hive mind seemed unaware of their presence, but they couldn't rely on luck alone. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Sergeant Jeon-yoon, who had insisted on joining the mission despite her injuries. She clutched, her rifle tightly, her eyes darting nervously at every shadow. "Focus," Sumin said sharply. "We don't have room for fear." They pressed onward, navigating the labyrinthine passages with the help of Tae-woo's scanner. Along the way, they encountered clusters of dormant drones, their insectoid forms twitching slightly as if dreaming. Sumin signaled for silence, guiding her team around the sleeping machines. One wrong step could awaken them all. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the central chamber. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a cavernous room dominated by a pulsating core suspended in midair. Tendrils of energy snaked outward from the core, connecting it to countless nodes scattered throughout the chamber. This was the heart of the Zorthian hive mind, the source of their power and coordination. "We found it," Tewu whispered, awe mingling with trepidation in his voice. "Now comes the hard part." Sumin nodded, pulling out a small explosive. "Charge. Set the detonator for 10 minutes. Once it's armed, we get out of here as fast as possible." As Tewu worked on the bomb, the rest of the team formed a defensive perimeter, their weapons trained on the entrances. But just as Tewu finished setting the timer, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "They know we're here!" Jiyeon shouted, opening fire as a swarm of drones poured into the room. The battle erupted instantly, the sound of gunfire echoing off the walls. Su-min fought with grim determination, her training taking over as she moved from cover to cover. Beside her, Ji-un unleashed a hail of bullets, her aim steady despite her earlier injuries. Even Tae-woo joined the fray, wielding a makeshift weapon he had cobbled together during the journey. For several tense minutes, the humans held their ground, cutting down wave after wave of enemies. But the Zorthians kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Ammunition ran low, and fatigue began to set in. Su-min glanced at the timer. 7 minutes remained. "We can't stay here," she yelled. "Fall back to the exit." Reluctantly, her team obeyed, retreating toward the corridor as the drones closed in. Behind them, the core pulsed erratically, its energy destabilizing as the countdown continued. The air grew thick with static electricity, making it difficult to breathe. Halfway down the hall, Jiyeon stumbled, her leg giving out beneath her. Su-min turned back, grabbing her arm and hauling her upright. "Keep moving," she ordered. "We're almost there." Finally, they reached the docking bay where the transport waited patiently. Tae-woo activated the engines, and the ship lifted off just as the first tremors shook the mothership. Through the viewport, they watched in stunned silence as the core exploded, unleashing a shockwave that tore through the structure. The destruction spread rapidly, consuming entire sections of the ship. Drones collapsed mid-flight, their connection to the hive mind severed. Outside, the Zorthian fleet faltered, its coordination crumbling without the guidance of the mothership. "We did it," Tae-woo murmured, slumping back in his seat. "We actually did it." But Su-min didn't celebrate. Her gaze remained fixed on the carnage unfolding before them, her mind racing with thoughts of the cost. How many lives had been lost? How much suffering had been endured? And for what? A fleeting victory in a war that might never truly end? As the transport rejoined the fleet, cheers erupted across the human ships. Captain Min-ju Lee hailed them from her dreadnought, her voice filled with relief. "You made it! Great work, Lieutenant!" Jae-hyun added his own congratulations, though his tone was subdued. "Well done, everyone! Now let's finish this!" The battle wasn't over yet. While the loss of the mothership dealt a crippling blow to the Zorthians, remnants of their forces still lingered. The humans regrouped, preparing for one final push to ensure the Valith's survival and their own. Exhaustion weighed heavily on the crew, but their resolve remained unshaken. They were humans, survivors born of struggle and hardship. No matter how dark the odds, they would fight until the bitter end. Because that was who they were. That was what it meant to be the Deathworlders.